Hello, nonprofit rock stars and heroes. This is Tom Check with Greater Impact Consulting, where we help you streamline Salesforce in your nonprofit so that you can focus on what matters, creating impact in your communities. And today we're starting off a little mini-series on automation. Automation is one of the primary things, one of the primary benefits that we get out of using a CRM, especially as a small nonprofit. So what is automation? At its very most basic, automation is about taking a repetitive task and making a computer do it for you. So a great example that all of us nonprofits have is acknowledgement letters, right? Somebody gives us a donation, we have to send them that letter. Whether we do it in the moment, whether we do it at the end of the year, whenever we do it, we have to send them that acknowledgement letter with our tax number, all that stuff. So we know that's going to happen for every donation. Why would we do that manually? It takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort, and it's easy to drop the ball. It's easy to let them slip through the cracks, right? And when things like that slip through the cracks, your stakeholders, your donors, don't feel as taken care of. And we want them to feel as taken care of as possible without being as much of a burden on your time. And automations help us do stuff like that. So, we're going to talk about some really specific Salesforce automation stuff in the next couple videos, but today we're just really zoomed out, kind of defining what automation is. And automation at its very most basic is a trigger and an action. So the trigger part of an automation is the criteria that has to be met for the computer to know that it's supposed to do something. Right? So when we go into Salesforce and we mark our donation as closed won or posted, or we enter a payment marked as paid, right? That is when we need to fire off an action. And the action is what it is automating. It is the tasks that you would normally do manually that you're asking the computer to do for you. So in this case, it's sending an email to that constituent, thanking them for their donation. Maybe you also want to add a task, a completed task to that opportunity record, letting everybody know, hey, an acknowledgement letter was sent at this date. Right? So that's a really simple automation that every nonprofit should set up in their CRM, whether it's Salesforce or any of the other CRMs available. Let's make sure that acknowledgement letters are sent off automatically. If you've got the donor's email address, then it should be really easy to send those off. And if you don't have an email address, you can automate it so that it gives you a specific task with all the information you need right in front of you, that you can print that letter off, put it in an envelope, send it in the snail mail, right? So automation is really at its very basic. It's just a trigger and an action. That's what defines an automation. And automations do more than just save you time. That is one of the primary benefits of them, is that you and your team are going to save time. But there's also another benefit in that you get consistency, right? In our donor acknowledgement scenario, those donors are going to get an acknowledgement within 5 minutes easily of you entering the donation into Salesforce and marking it posted. And when they get that, time after time after time, they stop worrying about it. They just, in the back of their head, they build the pattern that knows, like, oh, I gave to that organization again, so I know I've got an email. I don't have to worry about it. And at the end of the year, when taxes come around, if they've had consistent messaging from you because of that automation, they know they don't have to contact you for their letters. They can go search in their email box for their letters, which saves you even more time. But it's more important that it builds the relationship and the trust through consistency. The other aspect of automation and consistency that's really important, especially in your small nonprofit, is data quality. When you've got 5 different people entering data in what they think is the right way, but it's all a little different, it's hard to make sure that your data is not only consistent but high quality. And so when you run your reports at the end of the year, you have to deal with that inconsistent data quality. And you have to go in and you have to do a bunch of cleanup, right? So if you've got data entry pieces that are really consistent and really repeatable, why not automate those as well? And a great example, one of the organizations I'm working with right now, on opportunities, they use products. They sell workshops to private organizations like schools. And so they use products to track that on the opportunity. And then once they send an invoice to the school, we need to go over to program management module and create service deliveries for that. A service delivery for each product that was sold for each workshop. And that's really neat to know, because then we can recognize that that service delivery creation can be automated. It's something that they don't have to go in and manually create a service delivery while they're looking at products. They don't have to do that. We can add a button or an automation that just runs in the background and says, when this opportunity, if it matches this criteria, it has products, it's marked as invoice sent, then go ahead and create these service deliveries with all of this information. They're named this, the date is this, the information for the account is this, and there's no guesswork. There's no way to mess it up, because the computer is doing the consistent, high-quality data entry that a person would normally do. And this makes it so that even your interns, who you haven't trained, who don't really know the back end of your system, that they're just there for a couple hours, they're really passionate, they want to help you out, but then you end up spending time going and cleaning up everything they do. If you can automate as much of their data entry as possible, then all of a sudden your interns are creating higher data quality, and your reports look a lot cleaner, they're a lot more consistent, and your understanding of what's going on in your organization is higher quality as well. So those are a couple of the benefits of automating your nonprofit. And the last one, which is a little bit harder to wrap our heads around, but is really important, and I recognize this as a consultant, is that building automations forces us to codify our processes. It forces us to create consistency in our process design. And it makes us think about why we do the things we do. And when do we do the things we do? And who do we do them for? And where does the output of that thing go? So it really does force us as nonprofit professionals to get really clear on what our processes in our organization are. And that's really valuable long term. It removes kind of the data silos and the process silos that happen where, if the executive director is the only one that knows how things happen and they get, unfortunately hit by a bus, God forbid, then the whole organization is sunk, right? And it's a scramble and lots of balls get dropped, because the processes weren't codified and only the executive director knew what was happening in the background. And when we automate things, we're forced to codify that, and we're forced to say, okay, this is how this happens. And it's really easy to build a manual off of that, or a flow chart, or whatever documentation makes it easy for your org to be sustainable through a leadership change, or through a staff change, or through a huge portion of growth where you can't step in and be the one person who knows everything, teaching all the people who need to know it. So that's kind of our side benefit that's really important organizationally, but maybe has a less tangible outcome that you can point at and say, well, that's the benefit of automation. So those are the ways that we think about automation. It's a really simple concept: trigger and action. And there's some really great benefits. There's time saving. There's consistency as far as trust building and relationships for your stakeholders. There's consistency of data quality, which means that you get a better picture of what's going on in your organization. And it codifies your processes, which makes it so that your organization is more sustainable. So that's all we're going to get into so far in this video. In the next coming videos, we're going to really talk a little bit more about specific automations in Salesforce, because they've got a couple of different systems and a couple of different ways to approach automation. So I look forward to diving in with you in those, and until next time, keep up the amazing work of creating meaningful impact in your communities.